I don't give a rat's ass. Now, you may think, well, I've seen some of your videos, and it sure sounds like, you've got an agenda. You've got a purpose, and you say the things that you say because you care. Well, I'm here to clear the airwaves. Yes, part of it is that there's a little bit of caring in there, a little bit. But it's more of a further advancement of what would be considered truth. So, what makes me that way? Well, you can call it old age. You can say that it's, things from your past that, you know, you've been you've been holding back and you wanted to always get it off your chest, right? And you say, well, yeah, there's a lot of things from the past that obviously you do want to get off your chest. Things that you ultimately feel that, have been neglected, ignored. And you're tired of the neglection and you're tired of the ignore. So now it's time to stand up for yourself instead of being this timid, shy creature that is nothing more than a wallflower. It's time to peel away from the wall, and the flower needs to stand out on its own. Needs to hit the sunlight. Needs to soak up the rays, get everything it can out of it. Because it's tired of being the little guy. It's tired of being the one that always gets stepped on and stepped over. So when you see things that are out there, things that are on your mind, it's time to speak out. And so that's what I ultimately do. I speak out. Now, doesn't mean that, I'm looking for popularity. And it doesn't mean that, I'm popular amongst people who don't like hearing what I have to say sometimes. Case in point, a friend of mine and I were talking one day, and I said something, and he got instantaneously offended and he blurted out, "Would you some kind of a truth machine?" Now, see, I could have gave him the smart ass answer and said, "Yeah," but rather than answer it and you know go further down that wondrous quagmire rabbit hole, I just sat there and I said nothing. Even though I could have just simply said yes, or the social worker who one day says to me, "You're not as smart as you think you are." Okay, if you say so there, sweetie. Whatever you say. Right. Now, as a friend of mine would always put it, you know, anyone who buys you for a fool certainly wouldn't sell you for one. You're not what they call an amadon. You're not a dummy. Oh, you can put on the dummy act and you can play it up for the camera and do a real good job hiding it. But it's kind of hard to let that, it's kind of hard to darken that light enough where they can't see inside of you because it shines right through you. So when people tell you things, and as you're listening, not interjecting every 5 seconds, but actively putting your ear to the ground and listening for the stomp of the buffalo, right? While your nose is hopefully not going to catch a whiff of shit. You listen and you listen and you listen, and then you hear something that you know is completely off. It's bullshit. And you know it's bullshit. And the first thing that, you want to do is correct the problem. Put things in the proper context. Not because you have to be right, but because you'll never know what the truth is unless you put everything in the proper order. Because people will leave things out of a conversation on purpose because they know that that's the part that'll trip them up. Take the case of Daniel Hambrick. or in this case, Andrew Delkey, who's the police officer who shot him. Now, everybody's heard of this case, right? And there are a lot of people, screaming it's racist, it's Rodney King, you know, this guy is nothing more than Dirty Harry. We want a first degree murder charge, we want $30 million, all that good stuff. And what we'll do is we'll send our ambulance chasing race baiter watchdogs out on the scene to create this fantasy story that it was all racially motivated. Now, what they conveniently leave out of the conversation is that this kid is running from the police and he's armed and dangerous, and this guy is not Dirty Harry. This guy is giving him several opportunities to drop the gun, get on the ground, get handcuffed, and get put in the back of a squad car. But instead, he wants to run. So, having no other way out but to subdue the subject, not kill the subject, but subdue the subject to the point where they can get him medical attention. And on top of all that, once his wounds are all healed, they can haul his little happy ass off to jail. Now, the mother paints a different picture. Well, my son loves me. My son was my eyes for me. Right? And she was going on and on and on and on about her son. And I'm thinking, okay, wait a minute. Hold on. Wait. Your son loves you. And your son is your eyes for you. But it's hard to ignore that he had a gun and that he was fleeing from the police and that gun was pointed at the police officer, and I'm guaranteeing the gun was fully loaded. And all it took was one shot. One. And he'd be looking at attempted murder on an officer. If he killed them, he'd be looking at the death penalty. But it didn't matter because my son loved me and my son was my eyes and my son does no wrong. Well, lady, you need to pull your head out of your ass. You need to pull your head out of your ass. Your son does no wrong? Well, this is the evidence that's stacked against him. And it was the same in the Freddie Gray case, the Juan Castillo case, the Breonna Taylor case, the George Floyd case. the Daniel Hambrick case, all these cases are not just simple police brutality and violence, and they don't know how to de-escalate the problem and all this other stuff. It's like, we have to talk to them like they're in high school, like you're a high school guidance counselor or you're a psychiatrist. And you got to get inside their head and you got to talk to them. You got to de-escalate the problem. Well, the problem is that they have already made up their mind what they're going to do. They've already made up their mind what they're going to do. If somebody's got you by the neck and got you in a chokehold and has got a gun to your head or a knife to your throat, what do you think they're going to do? They're not going to kiss you on the forehead. They're going to go through with what they want to go through. Why? Because they simply put, don't care. They don't care. They'll go to jail. They'll do the time. See, I've seen a lot of kids who act up when they're younger. And they don't need to be talked to. Sometimes you need to fly across a room and you need to smack the shit out of them. Not all the time, but there are times when, flying across a room and smacking the shit out of them is the right answer. If you remember that scene in Goodfellas, where Karen's on top of him and she's got the gun pointed in his face. And he's talking all nice to her, right? We all remember the scene. He's talking all nice to her. And just when he's got her right where he wants her, what does he do? Slaps the shit out of her, knocks her to the ground, gets on top of her and points the gun and says, "How do you like it?" And he's literally screaming at her. And he leaves the room and she's, yelling, I'm sorry. And she's crying her eyes out. Now, see, you may say, well, you're advocating violence when it needs to be applied. Absolutely. When it has to be applied, you bet your ass. And it never hurt anybody. It never hurt anyone to get their asses kicked. In fact, it made you a better individual when you got your asses kicked. You may not realize it today, and you may grow to resent it tomorrow or down the road, but eventually you'll learn and figure out that, oh, it was for my own good. I shouldn't have done it. Now I know better. See, I learned that lesson the hard way by taking a bud off of a tree, and it was small, wasn't humongous. But took it off and threw it at my mother. Now, whether it actually physically struck her or it didn't strike her, I couldn't tell you. I was assuming that, over the years, it most likely probably hit her in the face. Because I did throw it pretty damn hard, and I knew exactly where she was sitting, so I knew exactly where to chuck it. And when you combine that on top of the fact that you're yelling and you're screaming at your own mother and acting a fool, once you start boiling that all down, that's a recipe for one big giant ass whooping. And that's exactly what you're going to get. And that's exactly what I got. I got an ass whooping. And boy, did I get an ass whooping. Because all I remember is throwing it and blacking out. But boy, do I remember waking up in a whole boatload of tears, boy. Oh, did I wake up in a boatload of tears. Lay down on that grass and cried my eyes out. Didn't do that again. Now, before you morons go running around and talking about that's child abuse. That's child abuse. No, it's not child abuse. Not child abuse at all. That's called discipline. That's called you deserve it. And there's nobody back then. Nobody. And I don't care who you're talking to. I mean, you could talk to the owner, you could talk to the neighbor, you could talk to the friend, you could talk to a stranger, you could talk to a police officer and tell them what happened. And there's not a single solitary person on the entire planet that's going to feel 1 ounce of sympathy for you. If you got beat, you must have deserved it. See, this is where my friend had it right. If you got beat, you must have deserved it. Now, today, a nurse came in who I like, and she told me a story about what her son did last week. Apparently, she went to bed super duper early. And I mean, she works long, hard hours. So she's pretty busy. And as she was laying down resting, her son decided to get her car keys and decided he was going to go for what he considered to be a joyride. Well, she woke up and caught him. And oh man, she was not happy. I mean, she was not a happy camper. Now, she could have beat that boy to oblivion. She could have called the cops and, reported the car stolen and, let him get carted off to jail. But instead, she handled it in another way. She took away, you know, things that he liked, and maybe, just maybe, he learned his lesson a little bit, and he won't do that crap ever again. I told her, that was me. I would have killed him. I'd have killed him. Not literally killed him, but I'd make his life a living hell. Oh boy, would I make his life a living hell. Yes, sir, you are going to know what hell is all about. Because you're going to start with washing and cleaning out my car. You're going to vacuum my car. You're going to Febreze it. You're going to wax it down. And I want all of it to shine. And then I've got other things around the house that you're going to be doing. Oh, for the next 2 months. Including the fact that you're not going to get to go out. You're not going to get to use the internet. You're not going to be able to watch TV. You're not going to be able, to do a lot of things that you quote unquote like to do. You'll get up in the morning. You'll clean up around the house. That house will shine. You will do all the physical back-breaking labor. Washing clothes, cleaning, mowing the lawn, trimming the bushes, paint the garage. You will be doing all of that. And anything else that I can possibly think of throwing at you, I will do it. And there's no telling me no, because we'll just keep going up and up and up on the time. So 2 months can turn into 6 months pretty quickly. Don't think it's possible? Go ahead, tell me no. Tell me you're not going to do it. Refuse. We'll be up to 6 months before you can blink. And if that's not harsh enough for you and you want to continue to be obstinate, well, then what we can do is we can go up to a year. And we will serve out the year. We will have the year come to full fruition. It will happen. Still want to tell me no? I don't think so. See, that's why I like a lot of these television shows where they show real life families who take on these troubled teens. And what they do is they instill their family values and their discipline upon the children. And they say, if you smoke, if you drink, if you attempt to run away, if you attempt to steal, this is what will happen to you. You will be punished. A lot of these people, come from military backgrounds. So you can imagine what somebody who comes from a military background can do to you. Talk about making your life a living nightmare. Put them in a boot camp where you're under constant 24-hour a day, 7 days a week, 365 a year surveillance. You don't eat until they say eat. You don't piss until they say piss. You don't shit until they say shit. You don't sleep until they say sleep. When they tell you to get up, you get up. When they tell you to go wash, go wash. Lock up. You come over and you lock up. See, these are the values that people today don't value anymore. They think it's too hard on the individual. It's too hard on them. Oh, let's look at let's look at the alternative, shall we? Let's look at the alternative. If you don't do it, what do they end up doing? They end up getting put in jail. That's the alternative. The alternative is that they go to prison. Where they will conform. Oh, yes, sir, they will conform. No doubt about it in my mind, they will conform. But you see, do they have to be given a chance? Yeah, they do. They have to be given a chance. But you see, they don't learn, a lot of these kids don't learn their lesson the first time around. So, by not learning their lesson the first time around, then, you have to go to the more, what's the word, hands on approach. You can't be afraid of what, of what somebody is going to say. I remember a long time ago, my mother and I, we went with one of the women that used to live in the back, and they had her. It was her and her daughter. And her daughter acted up. Oh, yes, her daughter acted up. And right there in Kmart, she got her ass kicked. And this woman got all mad and indignant and said, "How dare you do that to that little girl? How dare you? You are an unfit mother. You are an abuser." And she basically told her, "Mind your business. Mind your fucking business. This is not your daughter. This is my daughter. And I will discipline my daughter the way I see fit. She's acting up. She's got to get her ass kicked. And I don't need, comments from the peanut gallery. So just go about your little business and stay out of mine." And that was it. That was basically the end of the whole story. And I thought, well, good for you. Good for you. You stood up for exactly what you needed. And maybe, maybe she'll pass that along to other people who will see that, you know, I should, you know, just simply mind my business unless it's really a dire emergency. But since it's not a complete and utter dire emergency, see, it's the value of knowing, when is it a non, when is it a dire emergency? Well, if you're like the kid that lived next door to me and the boyfriend was beating the living hell out of him for no apparent reason, yeah, now it's time to step up and say something. I know I did. I called the cops. And I remember, this poor kid had a cauliflower ear. I think he had a broken shoulder or a broken collarbone. And when the mother was given the option of, do I stay with the boyfriend or do I go with my son? She stayed with the boyfriend. Now, meanwhile, I'm deemed a hero, a good citizen. Won the Good Citizenship Award, on the news, the whole nine, right? And I am again, not looking for recognition because it was more about the kid than it was about the recognition. It was about the kid and making sure that he was a-okay. And the last I ever heard of any of it was the night we went to a place called Bonanza. It's a steakhouse way back in the day. It shows you how old I am, right? So was getting out of the car, and a car passed by and yelled something, and was speeding up the road, right? Now, was it the boyfriend? Probably. Didn't like the fact that I ratted him out to the cops and he got busted for it. But again, that's tough. Do you think I give a rat's ass? No, no. You know, you're sitting there abusing this poor kid who did nothing wrong at all, and now you're mad at the whole world because you were the one who got busted. Well, gee, maybe, just maybe, you should have thought about that before you slapped this kid around the way you did. So there you have it, folks. Tell it like it is. Don't be afraid. Don't care what other people think. Don't live by their set of rules, their standards. Don't live by the world's playbook. Look up the real playbook and stick to it. And then when the world says one thing, know that you're still on the right page and that what you're looking at is the right way of doing things. And they're looking at it and doing all the wrong things. And in the end, the one who's going to come out smelling sweeter than the rose, well, that'll be you. So that's it. That's my advice to you folks. It's that simple. Thanks for tuning in. Subscribe, like. See you on the next time.